Alright, let's dive into something that's been shaking up the horse racing world lately. You might have heard about the big changes coming to the Triple Crown, and honestly, it's got everyone talking. But here's the thing, this isn't just about shifting race dates, or adding a new series. It's about the future of one of the most iconic traditions in sports. So, let's break it down. First off, the hook. What if I told you the Triple Crown, as we know it, might be on the brink of a major transformation? Not just in how it's structured, but in what it means. That's the question everyone's asking after the announcement of a new Thoroughbred Championship series that includes the Kentucky Derby and Belmont Stakes, but leaves out the Preakness. Yeah, you heard that right. The Preakness, the middle leg of the Triple Crown, is suddenly on the outside looking in. And that's not just a scheduling issue, it's a cultural one. Now, let's step back for a second. The Triple Crown has always been this mythical, almost unattainable goal in horse racing. It's supposed to be hard, 3 races in 5 weeks, testing the limits of these incredible athletes. But lately, it's felt like the sport itself is testing the limits of tradition. Personally, I think what makes this really interesting is the tension between preserving history and adapting to modern demands. The Preakness moving to 3 weeks after the Derby. That's a big deal. It's not just about logistics, it's about identity. Does the Triple Crown lose its luster if it's no longer this grueling, almost impossible challenge? Here's where it gets even more fascinating. The Belmont Stakes is now just 13 days after the Preakness. That's a ridiculously short turnaround, especially with the Belmont returning to its original 1.5-mile distance. What this really suggests is that trainers and owners will have to choose between the 2 races. And that's a massive shift. For years, people have debated whether the Triple Crown is too hard for modern horses. But now, the sport is essentially forcing that choice. It's like the industry is saying, you want a Triple Crown? Prove it. What many people don't realize is that this isn't just about the horses, it's about the business. The Kentucky Derby is a cultural juggernaut, the Preakness has its charm, and the Belmont has its history. But with the new series, it feels like the Derby and Belmont are aligning against the Preakness. Is that fair? Probably not. But it's strategic. Churchill Downs buying the Preakness's intellectual property for $85 million, and then Maryland matching that offer. That's a power play. And it's left the Preakness in a weird spot. From my perspective, this is less about racing and more about who controls the narrative of the sport. One thing that immediately stands out is the reaction from industry leaders. Bob Baffert, the legendary trainer, is all for innovation, but still praises the Triple Crown. Mike Repole, the prominent owner, talks about collaboration. But here's the kicker, collaboration is exactly what's missing. The Preakness wasn't even part of the discussions between NYIA and Churchill Downs. That's a huge red flag. If you take a step back and think about it, this feels like a power struggle disguised as progress. The question isn't just about race schedules, it's about who gets to decide what horse racing looks like in the future. This raises a deeper question, can the Triple Crown survive in its current form? Personally, I think it's at a crossroads. The new series is flashy, it's modern, and it's got big names backing it. But the Triple Crown has this intangible magic, it's about history, about legends like Secretariat and American Pharaoh. If the Preakness is sidelined, does that magic fade? I'm not so sure. What this really suggests is that the sport is trying to balance its soul with its survival. And that's a tough act. A detail I find fascinating is how this all ties into broader trends in sports. Look at how other leagues are modernizing, rebranding, and expanding globally. Horse racing is doing the same, but it's riskier because it's so rooted in tradition. The Triple Crown isn't just a series of races, it's a story. And if you mess with the story, you risk losing the audience. That's why the Preakness being excluded feels like such a gamble. It's not just about one race, it's about whether the sport can evolve without losing its essence. So, where does this leave us? In my opinion, the future of the Triple Crown depends on how the industry handles this moment. Will the Preakness find its way back into the new series? Will the Belmont move to a later date to make the Triple Crown feasible again? Or will we see a new era, where the Triple Crown is just a nostalgic relic? Honestly, I don't have the answers. But what I do know is that this is a pivotal moment. The decisions made now will shape horse racing for decades. And that's what makes this so compelling. Closing thought, change is inevitable, but how you handle it defines you. The Triple Crown has always been about greatness, about horses, trainers, and the sport itself rising to the challenge. Now, it's the industry's turn to prove it can do the same. So, what do you think? Is the Triple Crown still the ultimate test, or is it time for something new? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear your take.